Hello and welcome to the conversation at airsafe.com, the official podcast of the airsafe.com Foundation. I'm your host, Dr. Todd Curtis, the head of the foundation and the creator of airsafe.com, your reliable source of airline safety and security information since 1996. Today's conversation is a review of 2006, including the fatal events involving jet airliners and the significant events affecting airline safety. As many regular visitors to the site know, airsafe.com tracks fatal events that happen to airliners around the world. Fatal events are defined as any circumstance where one or more passengers on an aircraft flight die from causes that are directly related to the operation of that aircraft. The fatal event may be due to an accident or due to a deliberate act by another passenger, a crew member, or by one or more persons not on the aircraft. These events include sabotage, hijackings, and military actions, and exclude those cases where the only passenger deaths were to hijackers, saboteurs, or stowaways. In 2006, there were 8 fatal events, plus one other event that was of note involving an aircraft accident. The first fatal event was on the 3rd of May 2006 involving an Armavia Airlines A320 near Sochi, Russia. The aircraft was on a scheduled international flight from Yerevan, Armenia to Sochi in Russia. At the time of the crash, visibility was limited due to darkness and rain in the area. The crew reportedly abandoned the first landing attempt due to weather conditions. While the crew was maneuvering for a second landing attempt on a different runway, the aircraft crashed into the Black Sea, about 6 kilometers from the airport. All 8 crew members and 105 passengers were killed. The second fatal event was a July 9, 2006 crash landing of Sibir Airlines A310-300 at Irkutsk, Russia. The aircraft was on a scheduled flight from Moscow. The aircraft landed on the runway but was unable to stop. After departing the runway, it collided with a concrete structure, broke up, and caught fire. 5 of the 8 crew members and 119 of the 195 passengers were killed. The third event, on the 10th of July 2006, involved Pakistan International Airlines F27 in Multan, Pakistan. Shortly after takeoff from Multan Airport on a scheduled domestic flight to Lahore, the aircraft reportedly experienced engine problems. It lost altitude, struck a power line, and crashed into a field. All 4 crew members and 41 passengers were killed. The fourth fatal event of the year was on the 22nd of August 2006 and involved Pulkovo Airlines Tupolev 154 near Donetsk, Ukraine. The aircraft departed on a scheduled domestic flight from Anapa to St. Petersburg. About 30 minutes after takeoff, and at an altitude of about 36,000 feet, the crew reported an emergency. Another transmission was reportedly received before the aircraft crashed. The aircraft hit the ground about 30 miles north of the Ukrainian city of Donetsk. All 10 crew members and 160 passengers were killed. The fifth fatal event on the 27th of August 2006 involved a Delta Connection CRJ-200 near Lexington, Kentucky. The aircraft was on a scheduled domestic flight from Lexington, Kentucky to Atlanta, Georgia. The aircraft crashed shortly after takeoff, about 1/2 mile from the end of the runway. The event occurred shortly before sunrise, and there was no reported precipitation in the area. The aircraft took off on a shorter runway that is typically used by smaller aircraft rather than the airport's main runway. 2 of the 3 crew members and all 47 passengers were killed. On the 1st of September 2006, Iran Air Tours Tupolev 154 was involved in a fatal event near Mashhad, Iran. The aircraft was on a scheduled domestic flight from Bandar Abbas to Mashhad. After landing, the aircraft departed the runway and caught fire. There were 29 fatalities among the 148 passengers and crew. The next to last fatal event of the year was on the 29th of September 2006, involving a Gol 737-800 aircraft over the Amazon in Brazil. The aircraft was on a scheduled domestic flight from Manaus to Brasilia when it had a mid-air collision with a Legacy 600 executive jet operated by Excel Air of the United States. The executive jet had been on a delivery flight from the manufacturer to the United States at the time of the collision. The executive jet was able to land at a nearby military airfield. The 737, however, experienced an in-flight breakup, leading to the deaths of all 6 crew members and 148 passengers. The 2 crew members and 5 passengers on the Legacy 600 were not injured. The one noteworthy event of the year that did not involve a jet airliner occurred on the 11th of October 2006 in New York, involving a Cirrus SR-20 private aircraft, The aircraft was being flown by New York Yankee pitcher Corey Lytle and his flight instructor. Both of them were killed after hitting a 50-story building on the Upper East Side of Manhattan. There were no fatalities on the ground. Although there were initial concerns that this may have been a security-related event, it appears to have been a normal aircraft accident. The eighth and last fatal event of the year was on the 29th of October 2006, involving an ADC Airlines 737-200 aircraft at Abuja, Nigeria. The aircraft crashed shortly after takeoff on a scheduled domestic flight from Abuja to Sokoto. There was a storm in the area at the time of the crash, and initial reports indicate that there were 4 survivors among the 110 passengers and crew. Perhaps the most significant event for passengers occurred in the summer of 2006, after authorities in the United Kingdom broke up an apparent plot to bomb several airliners heading from the United Kingdom to the United States using liquid and gel-based explosives. Over 20 suspects were arrested in the United Kingdom as a part of the ongoing investigation into this alleged plot. One of the immediate consequences of this was that there was a ban, at first a total ban, of all liquids and gels being carried on board aircraft. In the ensuing weeks and months, the rules were loosened up a bit, but at present there are severe limitations as to what kind of liquids or gels passengers can carry into their bags. On airsafe.com there's an extensive explanation of what those rules are, what the limitations are, and how the average passenger, at least in the United States, can pack their bags. There are extensive instructions on what you can and cannot pack on board the aircraft. Well, looks like that's all the time we have for today. Before we end this conversation, I'd like to remind all my listeners that this podcast is sponsored by the airsafe.com Foundation. This nonprofit organization is responsible for this podcast and for a variety of other efforts to further the public's understanding of aviation safety and aviation security. For information about the Foundation or to make a tax-deductible donation, please visit the Foundation at airsafe.org. For more information about airline safety, you can find us at airsafe.com. That's AIRSAFE.com. Or type the words airline safety into your favorite search engine. We're probably on the first page of results. Feel free to write to us at our email address, theconversation@airsafe.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.